Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Happy Wednesday, March 11th, 2026, 7:16 on the clock as I speak. Today, Jupiter has stationed direct after being in retro for the past few months. And I for one am thankful for it. And today, with the stationary position, is a portal of sorts to just really kind of gather yourself, and I guess to gather yourself on account of the deficit of optimism and faith, and maybe perhaps in some ways good fortune and expansion, like quite a bit of a constricted time frame, whether you realize it or not. Because at first I didn't really know that was the contributing factor, but in hindsight, when I consider how long Jupiter has been in retro, which I believe was since November 11th, if I'm not mixing that up with another planet, it tracks, with just for me being a Sagittarius sun sign and having some other significant placements in that regard. I definitely felt the how can I say, like I guess the challenge, maybe, the tension. That's what it really felt like, the tension. And in the past few days, I've definitely noticed a release of that tension. And today, I felt particularly light, so I know that that's not coincidence. And it's stationary in Cancer, so it's not just about like how the comforts of, it's not just about how that spirit of optimism and hopefulness affects, like, even like your boldness to imagine and envision, dare I say even create an ideal reality, again, whether it be in your home space in the physical sense, or just in the way that you feel at home, or safe and sound and comfortable in your body. Either one could have been quite challenged over the past few months. And what from my understanding, from my point of view, it was really to just challenge your complacency, to maybe even do some releasing some pre-spring cleaning, to consider like what are you harboring, like almost, some hoarding energies, some energies that may have been hoarded for the purposes of complacency, and with the idea of almost a false sense of comfort or security in mind, intended on, that really don't have a place anymore. And that could have been, for me, I'll just be straight up, it could have been physically, it could have been actually and materially, but for me, it was much more energetic and psychological than anything. Like really being confronted with my awareness and acceptance of myself, my whole self, my identity, and what aspects of that, you know I can embrace, I am and do embrace without judgment, and without condemnation. Particularly judgment. Condemnation feels heavy, but the judgment aspect, and what aspects of myself that I may, have still been holding on to, that, for the sake of keeping the peace, or, not ruffling any feathers, particularly within myself, that really don't have a place anymore, whether they are actually causing harm or not. Like, I don't know. It's just, I even wrote a prayer for the last, I think it was the last full moon, that was geared around like a notice to quit, like a cease and desist to like fear and doubt and um unworthiness and what was the other one, scarcity, like all of these things that have maybe served as a crutch or a false sense of protection at a certain season in my life. I realized, you know, how they were making an imprint on me psychologically um, by my own allowance, you know. And I feel like it probably, honestly, like that's a revelation that really didn't come easy. So it probably took all of the retrograde to finally come to that settlement, you know, like, because you think you kind of have, not like you think you know, you've arrived to the point of, you know, a holiness that doesn't need to be, that still doesn't need to be healed. But there's certain things that you would think that you've done away with at a certain point in your experience and at your age, that you just, you would be surprised, you know, how things might have been still holding on for dear life, literally, because it was the last ditch effort for a lot of energies in particular to keep their grips, to try to, you know, stow away into this crossover moment of this new era. If you you know, were more or less oblivious enough or willing, you know, enough, maybe lenient enough to allow them to do so, it or them. In many ways, it's been a them situation, not just one but multiple things. So anyway, today definitely could serve as like a regenerative day, like at least if nothing else, a leveling out. You know, like consider the temperance card where there may be some bit of indifference. You know, it's not, you may not necessarily be feeling like you know, feeling back to your old jovial self per se, but you're definitely not feeling that sluggish heaviness, the sluggish and heaviness that collectively we were all subject to or have been all subject to, just on account of Jupiter being retrograde and also in Cancer at that. So in a watery sign, which wasn't a bad thing, it was all good, but it was definitely challenging. So anyway, with all that being said, I feel guided to do little net. I feel guided to do a message today that is not probably going to be officially in a Sagittarius intensive frequency, but kinda, you know what I mean, because of the spirit of the day. So if you have strong Sagittarius placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, Venus, really any of them, honestly, or wherever your Jupiter is aligned. Whatever, think about what's in your ninth house and so on and so forth. Maybe your North Node, this is for you. So essentially, it's for everyone because there has to be something that applies in your birth chart. And as I always like to say, Jupiter is the biggest gift giver. And so, with it being stationary in Cancer, first of all, I think it transited through Taurus, I want to say, but I might be wrong, through the retrograde because that might be too short of a time span. I can't remember, but either way, it leaves gifts wherever it goes. So again, Cancer, perhaps consider what's in that, what you have going on in that area of your chart, or in, what is that, the third house, fourth house, what is that, Aries, Taurus, I always mix up. Oh no, Cancer is much way past that. Maybe fifth house, I think it is. I think so. Gemini's third, right? Oh, so then would Cancer be fourth? It's either fourth. I think it's fourth. Sorry about that. I think it's fourth. Either way, you would know better than me how Cancer could be impacted in your chart. But in the physical sense, consider how changes have already been underway in your home, or how maybe your living situation or circumstances are changing, or how you may just be feeling more comfortable in your own skin. And please, please do give yourself the space and time to celebrate that revelation, whatever it may be, because that is the gift. For Jupiter and all of his fortune giving and fortune telling in some ways, the intangible things, because you could be looking forward to that as well. Like there definitely could be some windfalls or some nuggets coming your way, or some big breaks or opportunities to finally move ahead, or the feeling that you are free and have the liberty to move ahead in the way you truly are ambitious and passionate to do so. But all of that is worth giving gratitude for today, to, if nothing else, really enhance the effects and align with the the frequency that is align as the benefactor with the beneficiary itself, however you see celestial bodies to be, yeah, or the source that you submit to that has created all of the heavenly bodies. Either way, give thanks, because you made it. And that's not to be taken lightly, and everybody can't say so. All right, so let's see what we got. By the way, my eyes are itching. Well, my one eye is itching because we got a flash upgrade in weather over the past 2 days, which was also really nice, where it was like 70 degrees here from it being, -2 for most of the winter. And with that, it's like the allergy energy just like ramped up out of nowhere. But I'll take it in exchange. I'll take that in exchange for the snow right now. And it usually doesn't last long for me, and it's not as intense as it is for some. But I had my windows open and stuff, so I definitely feel the effects. The devil. Okay. All right. And what? What about it? This is something or someone binding. Oh no, not Devil D, honey. What's with these two? Let's see. Some type of binding opportunity. Let's see. Because this is, I was to say, is this something you want to be bound to? I can't tell. But then the star is here. Let me see. Let me get another one. Because okay. Okay. All right. So maybe it's the end of some type of powerful binding over a star, or over star energy, star power, like where it was, like I was saying before, where it's been restricted, constricted, that there's liberation now, like the captives are set free. But let me see, what's another one with next to death? What was that? Eight of Cups. Yeah, like free to move on. Is this the end of Five of Pentacles? Let me get one more between these two. All right, let's see here. This is like, okay, something has come to an end. It was a very treacherous cycle, where there was like a projection of scarcity, of fear, of dominance, of what's the right word, like dominance. And I just get the sense that like there were so many energies hurled at or held over individuals that were just operating in the frequency of their light organically to bind them, to bind them from that. And how it was happening, again, was through the spirit of fear and through the spirit of doubt, to feel like this, like to almost to it was a projection that was expelled to create this illusion that a cycle of captivity was starting over, that it was, like that there was, essentially like a no end to, like, almost to make you feel like everything that you have overcome or worked for or learned, gained, achieved, transcended at this point was in vain, because like almost like you missed something, or there was something there was a misstep that you made that would have entangled you into some type of entrapment all over again, like you that would put you back in this defensive mode, into scarcity, into a fear for survival. And it was really to completely override your well curated projection at this point of the highest frequency of your fate and fortune and destiny, of which you may have been working toward for a long time now, but that even in the ways that it was still crystallizing, you have managed to condition yourself to still hold space for, and to believe for. There it is, the optimism, the projection of the best case scenario. Like it's felt like all of that energy that you may have built up, worked on, again, curated over years, over seasons, over lifetimes perhaps, was just all for nothing. Like that was the illusion that was hurled. And it's like you're still getting attacked, you're still being defeated, you're still being withheld from, you're still not able to move with the liberty that you would like to, and that is just, or that you believed at least was due to you to do so, or justified to you. Like there was always going to be this heavy hand, like you're always going to be up under the thumb of the enemy. That's what it was given. That was the projection. Like you're never going to come out of this oppression. There it is. This oppression. That's what it felt like. Yeah. So it puts you back into defensive mode mentally at some points where, thankfully, if you maintained that synergy of your true identity, you knew how to walk yourself back from it or talk yourself out of it or comfort those moments of angst, like almost self-soothe in a way, as opposed to becoming aggressive or combative in ways that you would ultimately overexert yourself. You found peace and stillness, and you found faith and focus, and you just continue to renew that, kind of wash and repeat, so to speak, as many times as you needed to. And in some ways, for those that weren't really quite sure where it came from, this is a particularly large feat, humongous feat to have seen your way through or over, because you may not have known how the transits were creating this impact, or what the void may have been, or the deficiency could have been, to make you almost feel vulnerable in such a way, and so therefore you would have been extremely susceptible to those pitfalls, to those entrapments, to the to giving life to the illusion of those projections, but God, and particularly but for the God in you that continue to regenerate over and over. Yeah, that's the death card. Continue to regenerate over and over after, every knockout per se, or after every not elimination, but I don't know, I just get the feeling that, you may have experienced multiple mini deaths, maybe ego deaths. That's what we could be talking about, as well, over these past few months. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because this is a spirit and a principality. It's not an energy that you can really accredit blame to. And if anything, it feels like it's coming from, the call feels like it's coming from inside the house, if you feel me. So what do you do with that? What do you do with that? But be still, but encourage yourself, but continue to speak life into speak life and light into those dark spaces, especially into the ones that you thought you had cleared out, completely. So, yeah, something like that here. But let's see what else, because that was kind of hard to, I don't know. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, here it is. Like you really did some inner searching, and perhaps the universe sent some help and support by way of ancestors, way showers, guides, or just things that resemble a familiar energy, familiar spirit in the best way, and in ways that were for your good, to help you navigate the course. So you weren't doing it alone per se, but it may have felt isolating internally, if nothing else. Yeah, but for those that, it's kind of like this was like a really big threshold to burst through. You know what I mean? And it's like you would have probably, the work that was done, that you may have been considering at this time, was the proper investment, because if it hadn't been done up until this point, you would have folded. You would have folded, you would have faded, you would have, surrendered to the evasion of the darkness in your soul, perhaps, or in your spirit all over again, succumb to it, just based on the bleak outlook alone. You know, like that alone was more or less supposed to just take you out for the count. And just when it may have seemed, even to you, that you had nothing left to give and that, you know, all was lost, somehow you still managed to muster up the energy and the passion to get up again, you know, to stand firm on what you know to be true, on what you know is for you, and resisting, you know, even gently speaking, or maybe aggressively. I guess it depends on your strategy. But there was a resistance to that darkness that wanted to creep in, that was an armor established well before this transit occurred. And it was reinforced by way of those hidden helpers, perhaps, that were able to, you know, to really guide the way and, you know, block the things that you couldn't see. And so, you know, maybe to be the resistance to those hidden enemies that you couldn't necessarily pinpoint, or that could have taken you out otherwise. That made all of a difference. But again, the hermit has to work with something. It needs to work with something, and that would have needed to be a clear channel that you excavated a long time ago, in order for this level of support and intel to be able to pierce through at such a pivotal time. So it's like many have potentially, you know, really kind of escaped. I won't even say escape death, because it's not really an escape as much as it is a transformation, maybe even a resurrection or regeneration. I'll say you escaped the captivity of death in the lowest frequency. Maybe, perhaps, actually, because we are in Pisces season, you know, so ain't no telling what was coming your way. Something powerful and strong, though. Some really powerful forces, principalities, and maybe even entities were deployed. It was like all hands on deck, you know. And in terms of those that carry the light, it was every man for himself in the flesh, you know, because there's no one that you could have really talked to, or, you know, no human person being that you could have consulted for the best particular strategy for yourself, because they got their own battle to they had their own fight to attend to. So it's like, you enlisted an army of backup way back when, that, you know, you didn't even know you would have needed for such a time as this, and they were right there, you know, on command. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God. Yeah, I mean, to put it plainly, but as I've said, all the other stuff is still true. You narrowly escaped some dark demise. Narrowly. I mean, narrowly by, you know, by what you may have perceived in your own consciousness, because like I said, it was heavy, it was bleak, it was intense. Yeah, as the death card can be. Intensity. 7:46 on the clock. So it may, I mean, the Ace of Wands says to me that you were always really like the favored choice. You know what I mean? Like you were the favorite choice. You were favored to win, um let's say, but you know that flesh is, it can be unpredictable at times, especially when you don't know what you're fighting, or why you're just being attacked, period. You know, so you were the favorite to win, but it's by your consciousness and by your perspective alone, just sheerly off of what you could see and not having that support of, you know, optimism and abundance to source. Oh man, you could have easily fallen on your sword. What was that? Yeah, the Eight of Pentacles. But you stayed the course. Oh wow. Easily fallen on your sword. But you did not. Through what you didn't know or couldn't see, you just kept your guard up and maintained. Here it is again, this abundance of faith with the Wheel of Fortune. That it's like, what it really is, it's like at this point, you know, it's, you come too far to just fall on your sword. So even if you were willing to go down, you know, fighting, literally, that would be the favorite choice over an unpeaceful surrender. And like I said, you were the favored. I'm trying to, the favored side, I suppose. I'm trying to say the proper term that I'm hearing in my head, but like you were favored to excel, to exceed, no matter what. It was, you know, was kind of like all bets were on you. However, you couldn't have known that. There's no way you could know that based on what you're facing, because at times it may have actually felt, like I said, so isolating that it's like, you know, like, is anybody here? Hello? 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 You know, like what are we doing right now? For real. Because you've been following your instincts, you've been following guidance, inner guidance, and otherwise supreme guidance. You've been in surrender, constant submission to fate, and holding faith for fortune, and for that, you know, and really just allowing the fortune to be that persistence of faith itself in a ways, because Lord knows, like, that's such a gift to be able to still see the best case scenario when there is no evidence for it, there's no implication of it really, you know. And that's what it was given, like, over this time, like, all right, you said that this and this is, you want me to do that, and you know, like, all the things that you had answered to obediently may have started to come into question or into consideration. Like, did I hear wrong? Did I do it right? Did I forget something? Is there something else you want me to see? And really what I found, you know, through that time is like the divine wanted you to see yourself clearly. It's like it really wanted to open your eyes to your power, to, like I was saying before, it's like you are the conduit, and it needs those that are answering to that call to action in whatever way that you do, to do so with with confidence, like a strong consciousness of confidence and supreme self-esteem. Not, I think so, I guess so, I suppose, I'm doing the right thing, or I suppose this is inspired by you know what I mean? Like the questions are what needed to die. The doubts, the insecurities are what needed to be laid to rest. It wasn't really the body, but it was like your psyche was experiencing that death, in a way that felt really close to home, pun intended. It felt really close to home, like I said, like you were narrowly escaping some demise that you couldn't see. And you were, because if you would have relented to those insecurities, those doubts, those fears, they would have completely consumed you. And then at that point, there could have been the delay, or the detachment altogether from this great fortune, from the gift that the divine has been dying, again, pun intended, to impart, so that it can live on in the 3D. Oh, look at this. So much Sag energy. I won't be surprised to not see the temperance. I mean, to see the temperance. We got the Wheel of Fortune. Now we got this Nine of Pentacles. Good vibes. Good Saggy vibes. Even the Ace of Wands could be any fire sign. And I started to use Intuitive Kev's deck, but I was like, nah, let me just stick with these. But yeah, here's this independence here. And like I said, this is, this and the Nine of Cups, sometimes I interchange as like supreme self-esteem, where it's like you're completely secure with who you are, what you do, your capabilities, your talents, your gifts. Like you don't need nobody else or nothing else to validate it. It's been validated from a supreme source. And that was what this retrograde again was doing. It was like really detaching. There it is. Like it was, I'm sorry, I'm scratching my eye, roll rubbing it. It was really liberating from this dependency on validation, on approval, even. In some ways, even our obsession with it, or our addiction to it, where you almost don't feel truly affirmed, unless there are certain aspects in place, or certain how can I say it, like how am I trying to say this? Well, it's like an external validation that, as I always say, is fleeting. So if that's what you're going to build your focus on, it would be faulty. And that's what needed to be completely like detached from, at least in this powerful way. There might always be, some care and consideration, some aftercare, so to speak, regarding that, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that is the fortune, is like this almost certainty of how amazing you are now, no matter what, because of this very intensive time of 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 challenge, like almost like what's the right word? Challenge, or yeah, like when like almost like to trump you, like really test you, like are you who you say you are you who you think you are, or do you even know who that is, you know what I mean, truly. And for many of us, you came out speaking something, or affirming something to yourself very clearly that in retrospect has been true all along, and you may have just been reluctant to admit it, or to accept it about yourself. And of course your external environment was obliged to perpetuate that resistance. You know, that's what all this energy was for, to really like dig in, try to draw you back into a space and time where that was your subconscious undercurrent. You were just innately insecure, you know. Deferent, is that a word? Or deferent, maybe, I don't know. Deferent to power seen and unseen, giving deference to every other power except for your own. Just conditionally speaking, that had to die, that had to go. And it did, if allowed it to do so. And what has now, or is now, rising from those ashes is true you. Pardon me, a spectacle to see, indeed, a sight to behold. And it's drawing your, I would say this could also be even like it's drawing you into you for a closer look, if that makes sense. Like it has either sparked or revived this sense of security. I'm sorry, not security, curiosity, and intrigue, maybe even fascination. I like that word better. Like a fascination with yourself that maybe before you didn't want to look too long, didn't want to look too hard, or didn't want to look too deep to really, behold yourself. And now you feel a regenerated sense of fascination with who you are, so that at this point you can only learn more of the true power that you possess, and therefore can only become that much more masterful wielding it. Ultimately, it's like, damn, okay, I got this power, I could do this, or this is the result of my presence, this is the extension of my essence, this is the materialization of my passion, my dreams, like whatever it is. I feel like it's you're seeing something, or you're about to. Maybe it hasn't happened yet, but you're seeing something manifest, alchemize, materialize, that is so evidently magnificent. You can't help not only to not look away, but to look deeper. It's like, you know, you could be one of those that loves your reflection in the mirror, or you could be one of those that avoids it, or doesn't really get too captivated in it, for whatever reason. but I'm getting the sense of someone that, almost begins to like become mildly, perhaps, infatuated with themselves, and not in a vain way where it's like, they don't see anything else or no one else or nothing else exists. But I don't know. I don't know why I'm getting that, but I feel that. But it's like even as you are you working from the inside out, it's almost like you are also having an outer body experience, like observing yourself in some new energy or frequency of creativity that you've never witnessed yourself in before. Literally, it could be some abilities that are being enhanced or have been enhanced as Jupiter does. Could be your sight, could be your creativity or your ambition, your drive, your manifestation abilities, your alchemical abilities. Something has enhanced and has been it's been inflated to the degree that is not fleeting unless you ignore it, or unless you disregard it. That's the only way with an energy as big as the star, the ace of wands, the death card here, even the devil's on your ass. Like, nobody robs an empty house. And the wheel of fortune is massive. It's like whatever it is that you're holding, carrying, excavating, expelling, whatever it is very powerful. And you you would honestly be a fool to ignore it and disregard it at this point. And really that translation would be fear, which would be the fool, and the reversal, in the reverse. Because it's like almost too good to look away from, too good to ignore, too good to dismiss. And perhaps that could even still be the energy of those outside of you that are spectating or observing. But I feel this is more internal. I really, really do. Because people on the outside looking in may not even really know what they're looking at. But you do, because you have a first hand encounter of yourself and what you felt like maybe a month or two ago and how you feel just today. So let me get one more here. I might actually, I don't know, I'm gonna try to do one more. One more little pile here. But let me get one more card to close this one out. Six of Cups. Yeah, it's something from a past life that is regenerating, or maybe from an aspect of yourself. Because when I saw the Page of Swords, I was thinking like inner child, honestly, but I didn't say it. But there is a past, an energy of yourself that is being restored. Perhaps the innocence of your essence that, that has been tainted or overridden now. Maybe just misguided even for a long time. Like you've been hard pressed, really, even if you were even trying to restore the inner child of your nature so that you could have a more optimistic projection of your life, that you could dream and visualize and pursue dreams that feel bigger than you, but you don't see it like that because as a child you feel invincible, you know. So there, maybe that's what it's given, like some, that feeling of invincibility, and almost like children kind of even embody a frequency of omnipotence in a sense, with no worry, no doubt, no fear. Like we learn that over time. That is, we're conditioned to respond to life in that way through experiences. But before that happens, there's no limitation. And so perhaps here is the restoration of that frequency through your mature identity now, where you know enough to know how to perceive present danger, or to avoid it, or to prepare yourself, or protect yourself, or whatever the case may be. You're not just blindly walking into dangerous situations, but you're also not avoiding life again with this idea of, under the guise of these false senses of security either. So it's like a beautiful marriage or integration, of your inner child with your supreme self in your human existence. Wow, that definitely gives a Trinity energy. That's deep. All right, let me move on. And in order for this to all be true, you would have had to have gone through this expansion of the mind more than anything, to accept this nuance of your design, if that makes sense. Like, how am I trying to say this? Like the nuance of your, not existence, because that feels too primitive. What's another word for existence? Let me see. The nuance of your let me see, because I might be done actually. Let's see here. Existential is popping up. I heard that in my head too. Your presence, of course. Your oh, I'm seeing continuation, but what I was reading, let me look this word up before I say. Your countenance. Your divine countenance. That's what it is. To accept the nuance of your divine countenance. Let me see. Yeah, that's the temperance energy that I'm feeling. Approval or favor, encouragement, moral support. Damn, that's what it is. Yeah, you needed to, confirmation here with the Ace of Swords. I mean confirmation with the King of Swords. Yes, your divine countenance is what you were being, either what was being regenerated or born anew altogether, delivered altogether. I like delivered. That definitely feels strong. All right, let's see. The Hierophant. I mean, the Hierophant is loaded. The energy behind that. Ooh, with the Ace of Cups. My goodness. Oh my goodness. Like, yeah, this is like a divine appointment here. Irrefutable by the universal council, you know, like it's been decided, it's been settled. Like I said, you are the favored choice, but you needed to know that so that this frequency could really flow through you without obstruction. And without your own resistance to its currency, or to its current. Maybe currency is right. To that current. Oh my goodness. There's something that's really about to be so evident that you will never doubt. Well, I'll say this, you'll be hard pressed to find a doubt of, a doubt for, doubt of or doubt for, let's see, a doubt of your favor, your favor. Like you'll never question it again. Not at least not to the magnitude that you had reason to do so before. Because it could have been quite easy to feel like nothing special before, you know. But there's something that is being poured out, shown to you, exemplified, exhibited to not only assure you of your chosenness, so to speak, you know, but also I would say to make an example out of you in some way, shape, or form as well. Like to put you on display so that it is known, like, that's me right there. So saith God. Like that's me. Damn, that's even strong what I just said. Like that's me right there. Damn. And it's irrefutable. It's like nothing that anybody, even if they would try, you know, or try as they may anyway, to dispute it, to argue the fact, to what's another word I'm hearing, to resist it, perhaps even to attack it. It's like there's no measure of force that is greater than the divine with all its might. Is not even the King of Swords at this point. So it's like nothing anybody that can say against you, that would, because it's like something about the evidence in your waking life is just going to pretty much, you know, dispel any argument about it, You know, it's like people could say you're not good enough, or you shouldn't be doing this, or you're not qualified for that, or you shouldn't hold this position, you shouldn't have this authority, you shouldn't think too highly of yourself. But yet, something about your life is going to shut everything down to the point where it'll be just, and it'll just be, it'll at least appear to be just an expression of madness, or just hating for anything, for anything to try to argue against what your life clearly exhibits. Like, okay, well, if I'm not qualified, I may not be qualified to you, but this is, first of all, this, like I said, this has already been, this is an appointment from a higher source and force. So that's that anyway. We got the Wheel of Fortune here. Now we got the Ace of Cups, the Hierophant. This is a high level appointment that no one under ranking can, can change, or I heard the word again. Challenge. That's the word. Challenge. Yeah, to change or to challenge. But then that's that. And that would be cool with whomever relates, especially as a star. You're not really an authentic star, not celebrity, but star. You're not here for man-made appraise or accolades anyway. However, that's just the icing on the cake for those that would want to say that you don't deserve to be where you are, or to be who you are, or have what you have. For it to just be so abundant and so overflowing that it's like even the haters got to shut up. They got to. And then the only other thing, well, here, this will be the last ditch effort, of course, which again will just be spouts of madness, all things considered, is the accusation that you did something immoral or unrighteous to get what you have, or to be who you are. And again, that need not be proven, affirmed, or denied by you if you don't choose to do so. Because like I said, and it's not even just the life, it's like your fruits, Nine of Pentacles, are going to speak for you. Yeah, like it'll just be a waste of energy for anything. First of all, to try to impress upon you anything differently, particularly just by the frequency of words and projections. That's going to go right back to where it came from. People are going to have to eat their words, or eat their intentions and their projections towards you, which is not going to be pleasant. But I don't know. It's just going to be wasted energy. And yeah, defeated. Five of Swords. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Spirit. Wasted and self-destructive. So every time somebody might even try to speak a word against you, it'll somehow backfire on them, or to project a truth to you that is unjustified or unrighteous. It'll be like them falling on their own sword, or them attacking their own selves. And or people could, perhaps any energy that could attempt to challenge you, or to make an advance toward you, is somehow going to be stopped in its tracks, either circumstantially or environmentally. So either by their own pitfalls, their own obstacles that won't even allow them to keep it up, or literally by, maybe alliances, allies of yours, seen and unseen, that champion for you and that just shut it down. Like as soon as somebody would say something crazy, you know, you might pop up in some way, shape, or form, or present yourself in a way that completely dispels that ideal. You know, it's emphasis on speech because of the swords, but it could it could show up in different forms. Oh man, that's too many. Yeah, here's the three. Exactly, that nothing to talk about because the fruit speaks for itself. Is nothing to say. The world card, my goodness. And that's that on that. That's that on that because this cycle has been closed indefinitely on account of the fears, the challenges, and the maybe even temptations that were encountered and defeated. I'm captivating it to this Jupiter retrograde, maybe for this for the intensity of it all, but this has been long time in the making, long time coming, which is why it felt so heavy to feel like you were facing a repeat of something that you felt you had already defeated. Like, what? I ain't trying to do this again. And believe me, well, no, I won't say that. But anyway, um, yeah, but it was all for like a closing ceremony, like ceremonial closure is what I'm hearing right now. Because it was already finished, because it was written to be so. Like I said, you were the favorite choice to, you know, to come out on top, even as you may have looked like the underdog on the outside looking in. But it was something about coming to that state of closure for yourself and seeing it in physical, tangible form, like actual form, and feeling that sensation of closure in your body and your psyche. Now, on the other side of this is the reward for your tenacity to just see it through with no guarantees. And a channel song that I heard earlier, I said I would share it if it felt right. But I know it's a controversial artist now, given his latest stints in social media. But Marvin Sapp, not the time, not the place. Like, it wasn't the time or the place to give up. And it still isn't, because it still is a portal or threshold that we are journeying through. But you're coming through with a greater strength now, you know, a mightier force now than you probably would have pushed through it, than you absolutely would have pushed through it before this experience of confirmation that we just went through. Just believe, keep the faith, as the song goes. And in the process, you learned and have learned how to wait until divine timing showed you, you know, well, pretty much gave you the green light. Oh my gosh, the Ten of Pentacles is back. And look, was still here. The three of wow. The Three of Pentacles. So yeah, there's some talks and some considerations, perhaps, in dark spaces, behind the scenes, which is why it's probably an emphasis right now on it not being the time or the place to let up Like, keep your foot on your enemy's neck and not the people or spaces and places that these principalities and princes and powers embody, but the principalities and powers and forces themselves don't let up. And there really is no aggressive energy that you have to take toward that. Really, it's just not letting up on who, you know, you are emboldened and now, you know, with a newfound courage, appointed to be, anointed to be. You can't argue with the anointing of the divine, and nobody else can either. They can try, and they can try to disprove it and dispel it and even find a way to benefit or detract from it. But you certainly can't stop it. The only person that has the power, which is just another exemplary depiction of just how powerful you are, is you, by giving deference to some other force. That's the only, even to God itself. You would have to defer that power over by your own will before it could truly be taken away from you. At this point. With the King of Swords, another confirmation. Yep. Because, right, it's just, you know, you're just being true and honest with yourself at this point. Just keeping it real. And that truth is a hard pill to swallow for some, which is why, you know, there could be the resistance to want to challenge it or dispute it. But what has been affirmed to you and for you at this point is solid. It's solid. Yeah, so what you may actually, I feel some type of synergy here with maybe the words that you speak or things that you write or say or think. I don't know. There's something about expression here with the King of Swords, like maybe authentic, uncensored, perhaps, expression with discernment, of course, because the King of Swords may be a bit more selective even in their that there's still a sense of maturity and maybe intention behind the things that they say, mindfulness at least, but sincerity and honesty nonetheless. So it could be in how you continue to speak life unto yourself, to not only secure what is already yours, but to protect it, and of course to multiply it in the best case scenario, or magnify it in the best case scenario. But I feel, okay, is really an emphasis even more so on a maintenance of integrity, and that being the sword and the shield. For you, for the fortune that you have attracted to yourself, been gifted from the divine, the position of power, authority, or influence that you've been appointed to, the purpose you've been anointed for, all of that is protected simply by way of your integrity to yourself and to the truth. So with that being said, it really doesn't matter who says what, or does what, or projects what, or assumes what, because as long as you're living in authenticity yourself, there's nothing that can negatively impact what you create and what you manage on account of that, as an extension of that. And I feel like the World card is here to signify like the sheer insecurity of it all. Just me saying, or how I was saying, like it could evoke these insecurities, like, did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Was it me? Was it, it's not that you can't be self-aware and reflective and insightful and all of that, but you're being stripped, and hopefully have been stripped of those intrusions of illusions that take your mind off of, take your eye, really your first eye, off the prize, because you having to fight this little battle over here or contend with this energy over here. No, it realigns your focus on what truly matters, especially for the divine's sake at this point. So I feel like that feels heavier, like more intense to me than what I'm able to express, I think. But I feel like for those that know, just how deep it gets, how deep it is, actually. And now is the time where you are being not just authorized, but encouraged to fully flex in the uninhibited expression of your divine identity. And don't care if they like it or not. Period. All right. So I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, I leave you with peace.